Alright, the next video is on, it's called higher order derivatives. So normally we think our original function, we're going to call y, or we could call f of x. And our derivatives, right, we call either y prime or f prime of x, or we call dy dx. Well, this is called actually the first derivative. We can also take what's called a second derivative, which is basically just taking the derivative of the derivative. So it's like taking the derivative twice. And our notation for this is y double prime, f double prime of x, or we call this d squared y dx squared, and that's a second derivative also. Then you could take a third derivative, which would be taking the derivative of the second derivative. This is y triple prime, f triple prime of x, or d to the third y dx3. And so that's kind of our notation. Then when you get to the fourth derivative and beyond, okay, the notation kind of switches. So fourth and everything after the fourth, we'll do y and then parentheses just the number 4, f, like that, number 4 of x, and then this one is actually kind of always the same. So notice that the first exponent comes in between the d and the y, and the second one comes after the x. So we just kind of have to memorize this notation, be able to recognize it. I'm just going to write etc. because afterwards it's always we're just writing out the number. So to actually do these, it's actually really quite easy. So we'll do a couple examples. So example 1 is, what is the fourth derivative of y equals x to the 5th power? And to get the fourth derivative, we just take the derivative 4 times. So I like to start off y equals x to the 5th. Then that makes y prime 5x to the 4th. Okay, the second derivative, we're going to take the derivative of the derivative. So we bring that down, we get 20x cubed. Then the third derivative, we're going to do the derivative of the second, which is 60x squared. And then our fourth derivative, we bring that down and we get 120x. So that's really simple. Higher order derivatives. We'll do one more example. And this second example is, what is f double prime of 0 for f of x equals x squared sine of x? So again, first we need to find f double prime of x, and then we can plug in 0 for x. I'm going to again start off just writing the original x squared sine of x. And if you notice, you would have to put a multiplication in here. So when we're multiplying, we have to use product rule. So our first derivative, okay, product rule, we take the derivative of the first part, 2x, leave the second part alone, 2x sine x, plus now we leave the first one alone and we take the derivative of the second. So that's negative cosine. I'm going to change that to be minus cosine of x, and we leave the x squared by itself. Okay, if you notice when I do this second derivative, now I actually have, product rule here, and I'm going to have another product rule here. So we're going to have two product rules to keep track of. So when I do the derivative of this part, the first part here is 2x. I do the derivative, I get 2, leave the second sine of x alone, plus now I do the derivative of sine of x, I get negative cosine of x, and then I leave 2x by itself. Okay, now I'm going to do minus. I'm going to actually put all of this in a bracket and just subtract it all at the end. So I'm going to say cosine of x is my first term, x squared is my second term. Right, derivative of cosine x is negative sine of x, and then times x squared, plus, now I'm going to do the derivative of x squared is 2x, and then I leave the cosine of x by itself. Alright, and now I'll just rewrite this. and that's going to be 2 sine of x minus 2x cosine of x. Distribute the negative plus, I'll bring the x squared first, x squared sine of x plus, actually sorry, this is minus, right, because I distribute the negative, minus 2x cosine of x. And if we want, we can add our like terms, and so that gives us f double prime of x equals 2 sine x minus 4x cosine of x plus x squared sine of x. And now to get f double prime of 0, we just plug in 0 for x. If you notice, when you plug in 0, that will go away because of the x, and then the x here will be 0, so this term will go away. So really we just get 2 times the sine of 0, and this is where you have to remember our trigonometry. Sine of 0 is just 0, so 2 times the sine of 0 is just 0, and that'll be our f double prime of 0 for x squared sine x. Alright, that's the end of this video. Hopefully these aren't too hard. You're just taking the derivative once, twice, 3 times, and you just keep taking the derivative of the last one.